Our next guest is someone that we have already heard from, who so passionately read from the scriptures to us, Carolyn Moore. She's the founding pastor of Mosaic Church. She is a mentor for so many people, but particularly for women. She has been one of my own mentors from afar and has shaped how I view myself and how I view ministry. And I know many, many other people, men and women alike, can attest to that as well. She is committed to building an authentic missional community. And I'm just excited to welcome her today.
All right. So what if I told you that with half a dozen people, you could start a ministry in your church that teaches people how to disciple each other out of brokenness and into community? What if I told you that for little or no money, you could break cycles and dismantle family systems just by teaching people how to walk out their own faith and work out their own junk? What if I told you that the chances are nearly 100% that you already have someone in your church who is not only ready to help you get started, but is already equipped to lead? What if I told you that an 88-year-old curriculum can do more to set your extra grace-required folks free than anything that has been produced in the Christian marketplace in the last 20 years? And what if I told you that this curriculum is about as Methodist as it gets and will teach people, if they'll stick with it, to be sanctified to the uttermost? Friends, such a thing exists. It lives in the public domain, which means it's free, and it is as relevant today as when it began to show up in rooms around America in the early 20th century. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous were first designed to give addicts the support they needed to get sober and stay sober. Excuse me. Today, the steps are just as successful for guiding folks struggling with all kinds of issues related to codependent behavior. And the steps are very Methodist. 2 centuries before AA showed up on the American scene, John Wesley was establishing penitent bands, which met on Saturday nights when folks were most likely to visit beer halls. 12-step recovery groups are basically Wesley's penitent bands with a particular structure to them that encourages folks to get beneath the presenting symptoms of their broken lives to the underlying resentments and unleashed, unhealed wounds that keep us from fully surrendering heart and life to God. The 12 steps of freedom. As Kevin Watson, my go-to for all quotes on sanctification, says, only people desperate for freedom from all the ways that sin has wrapped itself around their lives are willing to own and confess their brokenness to other people. And only people who are that desperate are likely to receive the gift of entire sanctification. So how do the steps breed sanctification? Well, let's look at them. The first 3 steps are about reframing our reality and making a choice based on that reframing. Step 1 says we admitted we were powerless over our circumstances, that our lives had become unmanageable. Who's ready for step 1 right now? Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to God as we understood him. I take no offense at that language, God as we understood him, because I can't make you understand Jesus before you've had an encounter with Jesus. So these first 3 steps are about making a decision to make changes. Choice is an action, not an inaction. Still, all these first 3 steps are asking of us is this: are we ready to make a change? Are we desperate enough for it to go after it? Not just say we're going to get up and go after it, but actually get up and go after it. Are you ready to admit you're powerless over your circumstances, that your life is not heading in the direction you planned, and now you can't seem to stop the train? Are you ready to list all the things you have no control over, which means people, places, and things, That's what you have no control over. And then admit that to yourself and begin to work out that reality. Are you ready to believe that you, all by yourself, are not enough to create a meaningful change, and that you, all by yourself, cannot get you, all by yourself, out of a cycle that you now realize has been repeating in your life, a cycle that is destructive to relationships and not getting you anywhere? That's the work of the first 3 steps. In Christianese, we might call that justification. The next 4 steps are about the path of sanctification. They're about searching ourselves to discover and admit exactly what needs to change. So step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Oh, Jesus, please do it. Not to me, but to people I know. Step 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. These steps are confessional. They're about getting honest with ourselves about what we resent in our lives and what resentments we're working out of. There's more to these steps than resentment, but it's a great place to start because it is amazing just how much of your life is shaped by resentments. Can I get an amen from the United Methodists and former United Methodists in the room? Then steps 8 and 9. These steps are about relational issues that stand in the way of making changes. So step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. That's quite a to-do list in this step. Making a list of all persons we've harmed all the way back as far as we can remember, that's a lot. And to make this step happen requires a whole lot of humility we probably didn't have before we started this healing journey. Step 8 asks us, listen to this, to remember the people who deserve our humble admission of harm. And step 9 challenges us to make direct amends to those people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. This step reminds us that discernment is part of this journey of recovery. We don't get to just plow over people and say things we've always wanted to say so we can get it off our chest and feel better. No, there's a wisdom card to be played in these steps. And that's why we can't rush the process too quickly. Wisdom is something we slowly and intentionally develop on this road to on this road to recovery. It doesn't come automatically. It comes over time as we heal and learn to listen for the voice of God. Steps 10 and 11 are about learning how to focus on barriers to and opportunities for success. In step 10, we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. And step 11 sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. These steps are about building the means of grace into our lives. They are Paul's advice to the Philippian church to continue to work out your salvation daily with fear and trembling. And then step 12. That's the missionary step. Final freedom for the follower of Jesus is marked by a proclamation of God's power. That's the spirit of the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Step 12 is testimony and evangelism and mission. Friends, the 12 steps put the work of recovering from our fallen world on the people who belong in our communities. They are free, they are proven, and they are about as Methodist as it gets. And the 12 steps will teach people, if they'll stick with them, to be sanctified to the uttermost. Amen.